you get off your intro call, instead of recommending, hey, let's chat at Friday at 3 or even next week, say, what does later today look like? They'll probably laugh at you, they might smile, but what's happening is we're psychologically telling them that a week from now is way too long, 2 weeks from now is ridiculous. You do that with every single deal, you're gonna start closing deals faster.
One of the biggest things that has slowed down my deals is when I get the dreaded, Nick, before we even do that, I'm gonna take this back to the team, we're gonna have a conversation, and we'll let you know what we think. When you get one of those scenarios, how do you typically respond?
Totally. I think you should blame yourself. Hey, Nick, am I going way too fast here? I can do that sometimes. Was I misaligned on the alignment here on this project? Normally, when I hear the things that you're saying, it's a really, really, really good fit, and people need to move quickly during these evaluations. I'll make sure I'm sensitive to your time. How about tomorrow instead of later today?
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farokh, and I'm here with my co-host, Nick Cegelski. And today, we have a friend of some of our best guests ever, including a friend of John Scherer, who was previously the VP of Sales at Lattice. He was the #1 rep at Lattice 2 years in a row, and then he went on to be the founding AE over at Finley, and then he went from founding AE at Unify, where he did over 300% of his number, and then over 500% of his number the next quarter, and eventually became the revenue leader at the team in under 1 year. And holy smokes, does it show in this episode. Nick, why should people listen?
We got into a number of things that, frankly, we haven't heard in almost 300 episodes of 30 MPC. Anthony talks about things like asking your customer for same-day next steps as a way to anchor them to meetings sooner rather than later. We get into things like complimenting your competitors as a way to actually diffuse their ability to win the deal over you. We talk about blaming your team as a way to drive deal velocity and setting internal compelling events rather than external compelling events. So if you are looking to drive more deal velocity and not be perceived by executives as just another crappy seller, you may wish to listen to this episode with Anthony.
In 3, 2, 1, let's roll.
All right, Anthony, welcome back to the show. You may remember that we start every single episode with your top 3 actionable takeaways, so let's get yours.
First one is same day next steps. When you get off your intro call, you get off your demo call, instead of recommending, hey, let's chat at Friday at 3 or even next week, say, what does later today look like? Prospects probably won't agree. They'll probably laugh at you. They might smile. But what's happening is we're psychologically telling them that a week from now is way too long. 2 weeks from now is ridiculous. So they're going to offer up maybe 48 hours later. You do that with every single deal, you're going to start closing deals faster.
Awesome. What's number 2?
Group demo follow-up. So you're actually going to send 3 different types of demo follow-ups. You have a group of 10 people. You send a single email to all 10 people, thanking them for their time, your mutual action plan, standard sales stuff. You're then going to send a second type of follow-up, which is a single thread to every single person that was on that call. Hey, what did you think? I know it was a short call. Do you have any feedback? Give them a channel to make them feel heard and show that you care about that individual and not just their business. The third type of follow-up, you're going to send an email to your champion or champions, and all it says in the subject line is, how do you think it went? No body, ship it immediately after the call goes. They'll reply to that email.
What's number 3?
Fudding your competitors with compliments. Fudding is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Most sales reps will be trained or will just autonomously go towards dragging their competitors through the mud. The other end of the spectrum is they'll say, hey, I'm not going to talk about competitors. We don't give them time on our show. I think we should sit right in the middle. You want to build rapport. You want to build trust. You want to show you're the right person to partner with. Tell them why your competitors exist. What do they do really, really well? How would they find success with those customers? Based off your discovery, you will be able to put an angle or a spin on that conversation to where they know that your product is much better than the competitor.
The man of speed. This is all about deal velocity. I want to go back to that same day next steps. My guess is you don't drop your discovery questions and say, great, let's meet end of the day. How do you wrap up your discovery calls for speed?
Good question. I usually say, hey, Armand, this is a great fit. I actually have an opening today at 4 o'clock. Why don't we jump on for 30 minutes and I can start showing the product while it's fresh in your mind?
Do you literally just stop doing discovery at the end of your call and jump right into that talk track?
Definitely. If I think it's a good fit, and I know it's a good fit, and I should because I work at this org, I've been in this space, I'm supposed to be the industry expert here. I'm going to tell them and let them know that this is something that is worth their time. Offer up my calendar and show them that I care, and I'll do it right now for them. It's customer service at the end of the day. I'm going to be faster. I'm going to respond faster. I'm going to be more helpful. You're not helping anyone out by saying, hey, let's meet in 2 weeks.
One of the biggest things that has slowed down my deals is when I get the dreaded, Nick, before we even do that, like, I'm going to take this back to the team. We're going to have a conversation and we'll let you know what we think. When you get one of those scenarios, how do you typically respond?
Yeah, let me know. What do you need to go back to your team and think about?
Well, it's a lot, we're looking at a couple different options, and I don't know, I usually get like a vague response from somebody and they don't have like very, very specific things that they need to get into.
Totally. I think you should blame yourself. Hey, Nick, am I going way too fast here? I can do that sometimes. Was I misaligned on the alignment here on this project?
Yeah.
Normally, when I hear the things that you're saying, it's a really, really, really good fit. And people need to move quickly during these evaluations.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make sure I'm sensitive to your time. How about tomorrow instead of later today?
Anthony, my guess is you're finding things in the middle of your discovery call or throughout your discovery questions that are showing you that this could be a hot deal or an urgent deal. Could you talk about what you're trying to uncover in the discovery call to get your deals to move faster?
I'm trying to first figure out, does this person actually trust me? Do they believe me? Or do they think I'm just like blowing hot smoke? So if we can build some type of relationship as much as you can in a 30-minute call, we can understand there's some level of business acumen between each other and respect. If I have that, I know I can move forward and start pushing towards something. Usually that push is just another call. I'm not thinking close. I'm not thinking send the DocuSign. I am thinking, how do I set up a next call? And I try to train my reps that throughout every single call, all you care about is that next step. It can be really, really meaningful. It could move the needle by 1%. But as long as we have a next step, the deal's alive. If there's no next step, there's no deal. I think one of your guests and one of my mentors, Ross Shankin, taught me that.
So one of the things that I think a lot of sellers screw up is they might discover a lot, but the buyer's sitting there being like, does the salesperson really know their stuff? Are they an insider? Are they an expert? You mentioned the piece around fudding competitors by complimenting them. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do on a sales call that you are doing with intention to build credibility, build trust, and make them look to you for advice?
I want to show them I understand my competitors. What does each competitor do? And what do they do well? Outside of what do they do well, who do they partner with that are good fits and that are who are bad fits? So now I'm talking about the product and I'm talking about the customer from both ends. I also want them to understand that I'm not going to have to go and loop in a bunch of other people from my company to move this forward for them. I'm their source of truth. I know about competition. I know about my product. I know about pricing. I know about support. Everything under the sun, they should come to me. I should never have to loop in another person to run my own deal cycle. Could happen if you have a really, really technical sell. You might need to loop someone in. You might need an engineer. That's okay. But you should know who that person is. You should know what they're going to do. Let your prospect know that you know what you're doing.
Anthony, I want to go back to this driving deal velocity concept. I think there are 2 or 3 ways you can drive deal velocity. One is you reduce the space between steps. So you literally do same day next steps. Another is you can probably combine steps where you do demo and pricing in another call. But then there's also just making sure that someone is willing to sprint through those steps as quickly as possible because you've identified a compelling event. And so I know, for example, at Lattice, you would oftentimes have people who want to do a big performance review. And that's a very obvious, compelling event where, like, if we're going to do a Q1 performance review, we probably have to have a performance management tool in place. But if you don't have that, what were other ways you drove timeline and urgency and speed at Lattice?
Yeah, like I would always blame someone. It was never me in this case. I would say our CRO at the time was Deanie Mehta, and I'd be like, hey, you know what? Deanie's tied to a number. She never wants to give out opt-outs. She doesn't want to give out any type of pricing adjustments. She doesn't want to give out any type of commercials. But I can tell you what, at the end of the quarter, when she's looking at that number, if you are a good fit, we are the only tool that you are looking at. We are your number one option. And you are ready to sign right now. There's a much better advantage that we can move forward with some type of pricing that works for you.
So you'll proactively bring up the commercial concession if you don't sense that there's a bigger compelling event.
Yeah, because you don't have to necessarily give a discount. It could be billing. It could be a free month. It could be extra seats. It could be something that doesn't actually cost your business any money, but you're letting them know how to get a deal internally. You're coaching them. You're giving them a look into your org. You are not pulling this cloak of like, oh, we'll talk about pricing at some point. You're letting them know that if they ask about it, they need it. This is how you're going to move the deal along. I've given you pricing. I've given you what you need to do to get set up. I probably have even prescribed who needs to sign up on this. I am now a project manager. I'm no longer selling them on something.
So to the point of velocity, at what point will you, one, bring up pricing, two, bring up the concept that, hey, if you sign by a certain date within whatever period, you're going to get a better deal? Because my guess is you're not kicking off your first call saying, hey, there's also a way for you to get a discount. So I'm curious, how do you think about those two factors in your sale as it relates to velocity?
Good question. I think the first part there, pricing, it can come in at many different stages. Some people, you might be talking to a CEO. You need to give them pricing immediately. They're the decision maker. They can pull their credit card out immediately and purchase some software. You're talking to a mid-level manager and you don't need to work up through the org chart. I'm going to hold that close to my heart. I might give them some type of range so that they can go and get the DM and pull them into a demo. So there's a reason that they should join. But it's going to be different based off every persona.
One of the things I've observed, especially in HR tech, is the person who gets to power first wins. And if you get to power, your deals move faster versus if you're stuck with a people ops analyst, you're just going to be stuck in the operational weeds with someone who lives in a cost center for the next 3 months of your sales cycle. Could you talk about how you accelerate the path to power in your deals?
Yeah, I say even after the first call, I would be setting up a demo. So it would be intro, demo immediately. I am looping in on that first call. I'm saying, hey, it sounds like this is a really good fit. If we were to move down this funnel and you were to actually sign on and partner with us, are you the one who would be signing? Usually it's no. It's the CEO, CPO, CFO nowadays in this market.
Yeah.
And it's great. You know what? It's probably worth their time to come in and jump in for 15 minutes. I can show them exactly what they care about. They can jump out and then we can continue to do a deeper evaluation. But now they have a sense of at least what you're looking at.
How do you structure those calls? Because I have always found it challenging when you've got people coming in and out of meeting. And my guess is you have some people that take you up on that, where the CEO comes on and she's like, great, I've got 14 and a half minutes, go. How do you use that first 15-minute chunk with that person? And then assuming that they leave, what do you do the next 45 minutes of that meeting?
Yeah, everyone wants to build rapport. They want to ask discovery questions. They want to show product and they want to set up next steps. That's probably like sales 101.
Yep.
I'm going to show rapport to an exec that I understand their business. Hey, Nick, if you're the CEO, I've been talking to Armand. He's told me your top 3 initiatives from your business review this year are 1, 2, and 3. Now they know I've at least paid attention and that I'm not just going to jump in and ask them, hey, is it raining in San Francisco today? From there, I'm going to show them what they care about. Hey, these are going to drive these 3 initiatives directly in our product. I know you care about timing. I know you care about pricing. What are the risks else that I need to see? You tell me.
What else are you doing in that really tight 15 minutes with the executive to gain their respect and get their engagement? Because my assumption is the talk to listen ratio in those 15 minutes is not 98% you, 2% the exec saying, looks good.
Totally. I think it's important to pattern match. If I was talking to Armand as an executive, it would not be the same tone. It wouldn't be the same speed. It wouldn't be the same engagement than if I was talking to you, Nick.
We're got to really dumb things down for him. Like, I would recommend talking slower, speaking like you're speaking to a third grader.
The definition slot. It is a quality you.
Good job with your business.
This is a Google Doc. Let me show you. No. Yeah, I think it's important to pattern match firstly, just to disarm people. Just say, hey, this is awkward. We know this is awkward. You've been in a million of these. You probably hate me and think I'm scum, but that's not the case, because I'm going to show a level of professionalism and I'm going to show you that I understand. If I can show you that the pain of going from 1 to 5 million in a year and like that's really, really awesome. I show you I'm not just a sales rep at X company. I understand business. I understand tech or like MarTech or whatever vertical you're selling into.
What's going on, folks? There are literally only 2 things that you need to nail as a salesperson if you want to make it to President's Club. The first is your ability to fill your calendar up with meetings and create new pipeline, aka prospecting. The other thing you have to nail is your ability to drive those deals to close. And since you've made it this far in the video, I've got a gift to help you do both of those things. If you use the code YouTube at 30mpc.com/courses, you'll actually get $50 off our 2 best courses to help you nail both the creation of pipeline and the closing of pipeline. The first course is called Cold Calls to President's Club, and in that course, we teach you what to do, what to say, and how to sound in every single part of a cold call, from your call opener to how you pitch, to how you overcome objections, to voicemails and gatekeepers, and more. The second course is our discovery course, which is focused on how to sell in a way that doesn't feel like selling. And in that course, we teach you how to uncover massive 6- and 7-figure business problems that companies actually want to pay to solve. And we'll teach you the way to structure your calls. We'll teach you the questions to ask. We'll teach you how to get to the decision maker and drive timeline and make discovery something that you know how to do effortlessly. And again, if you go to 30mpc.com/courses or go to the link below and use that code YouTube, you'll get $50 off any of the courses. I will see you at President's Club. Exec comes on. You've got 14 and a half minutes with them. You're pattern matching to their style. If they're clearly wanting to get right down to business, you're doing that. If they're a little bit, want to feel things out, you might build rapport in a credibility-based way. You're demonstrating to them in a really, really tight way. I think you care about this, pricing, and this. Is that right? Anything else you need me to cover? I'm watching the clock here. They're like, nope, that looks good. Let's get into this thing. You get into this thing. You're showing them a very high-level demo, I assume. Let's talk about how that now 13 minutes, how does that differ from your typical demo?
Sometimes I'm not even demoing. Sometimes I'm speaking to it. Sometimes I'll say, hey, these are your 3 initiatives. This is how we execute on that. I've already talked to, let's take Armand as my champion. Armand and I have spent 4 hours already going over these things. We know from a technical standpoint, it works. We can do what you want. Let me tell you how we're going to do that. How we're going to get you to success in the first 30 days, what you're going to see in the first 90 days, and how we're going to partner for multiple years. I get through many a deal cycles without ever opening up my demo environment.
And so are you showing like a business case, a slide or something, or is this just you talking and making movements with your hands?
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like snake oil when you say it that way. I will utilize slides when necessary. If there's a case study that I can open up, I will never click through a slide deck. I will always open up my demo environment for my champion, walk them through everything that they need to see. But again, I don't want to go under the hood.
Yeah.
I want to show them what we do, how we do it, and what it's going to drive for them. How are they going to get some form of ROI immediately?
When you're presenting to an exec, there are 3 levels that you can present. And what you just described is the why, which is this is why you should solve this problem and why we're the best to solve it. But you don't need to go into the what with them, which is what you are actually doing inside of Lattice, your software. The next level is some execs want to see not just the why, but the what is this thing that I'm looking at? And that's where you use like a 5-minute harbor tour demo, where you basically just show them like the key hero features that make it real. So it's like, here's what a performance review looks like in Lattice. Here's what the output looks like. And that will usually get you through 80% of execs. The last 20% of execs are the hands-on execs who are not really execs. They're just like operators that are currently doing both jobs. And those are the ones who need the how. But the problem is a lot of people will bring the how demo, which is setting up permissions, how you do the dashboards, and all the back end of your tool. And they'll show the executive the how the tool works. And that ends up bringing the conversation so far below the line. That's what you should be showing your technical buyers and your champion versus executives usually just want to know the why and sometimes the what.
Agree. They'll let you know too.
Let's go to the next step in the sales cycle. So you get executive initial approval where they're like, I want to solve this problem. From there, you probably go into a finance, budgeting, procurement conversation, and that can oftentimes drag deals through the mud. How are you managing those conversations to make sure that your negotiation doesn't drag out for 17 weeks?
Yeah, good question. I will always tie it to a compelling event internally. So a lot of time we'll want to tie it to some form of event that the customer has. Not everyone has a performance review coming up. They don't have a product that's coming up on renewal. They don't have a launch that is happening. So you need to find a way to make it real. A lot of times you can control is what's internal. So I will always anchor to a problem or a person, and I will always deflect that I have any power in the world. There's three things that we do. If Armand is my CRO and I want to blame Armand saying, hey, you know what? He's difficult to work with, but I understand how he thinks and what he cares about. I'm going to put on X cap, and I usually will say like the customer's name. I want to work for you, but I understand how Armand's brain works. He cares about three things. Product. Hey, are you going to add more seats? Are you going to buy more licenses? Are there going to be more credits? Whatever that is. He wants to make sure the package is as big as possible. He then cares about, hey, are we the best suited partner for this customer? Lastly, time of sign. If I can tell Armand that, hey, they're going to buy a huge package and actually pay upfront for more seats or more credits, we are the number one choice in this evaluation, and they are signing on February 19th. Well, Nick, I'm going to be able to get you like a pretty good deal, and Armand's going to sign off on that. I have now made a compelling event internally for them to say, hey, we are ready to sign.
What I really like about it, it reminds me of a concept that I've learned from Todd Capone, who wrote the book The Transparency Sale, where he talks about teaching your prospect, here are the ways that you can get a discount. Here are the things that we care about. And he talks about volume, timing of the deal, timing of cash, etc. What you do a little bit differently is you're adding the point around best fit product. Because what that introduces now is prospects often try to start negotiating with us before they've actually finished their product evaluation, where they try to start negotiating and there's like still 2 or 3 more demos or things that we need to validate. And now by introducing the product fit, the mutual fit piece, you have a right then to say, hey, we need to check these boxes and go through these demos before we get into the negotiation. That's really, really smart. I see risk of deals elongating, however. I see this happen all the time. Like the champion wants one more demo, one more meeting, and you go on what Armand calls these demo trains. And so my guess is you're doing things to tighten or control the amount of meetings and endless demos that you have and almost teach them the criteria that they need to evaluate you upon. But I'm making an assumption, and so I'd love to hear what you do to make sure demos don't go on endlessly.
Yeah, that starts in the intro call. First time you meet them, understanding their business, what does their org chart look like? Have they purchased software before? Hey, Nick, I know you work at 30 MPC. Have you ever bought a performance management tool before? And they're going to say yes, or they're going to say no. And if they say yes, cool, how did it go last time? They're going to spill their guts and tell you exactly how you need to get this deal done. If they say no, you need to be a professional and understand to purchase software. They need to have exec buy-in. Nowadays, they need to have CFO buy-in. There's probably another layer or someone that we don't know yet that also needs sign-off. You can just tell them that. Hey, Nick, normally when I'm in these deal cycles, the CPO cares about looking at the tool and actually seeing it. The CFO wants to make sure the commercials make sense. And like maybe the COO or the CEO wants to make sure it aligns with their company initiatives. Prescribe to them what needs to happen to get a deal done. You know, most sales reps are just scared to reveal that. So again, we're making ourselves feel better, but it's not real.
Anthony, there's one last piece of this process, which is vendor review. So you get financial approval, and then deals go through 17-week legal processes, long security reviews, all that nonsense. Any tips for managing that process?
Yeah, I usually will speak to some type of like SOC 2 compliance, or if we're like working with a security vertical that has never slowed this down before. And I will start equipping my champion, like the pre-close, well before we actually close the deal. Hey, I know you're going to need this. Here's our SOC 2. When I worked in banking software, here's our SOC 1, 2, and 3. Here's our security docs. Here's everything that you're probably going to need. Is there any way we could submit this to your security team? Because it sounds like we're most likely moving forward. But I also would want to make sure that this doesn't get delayed because you have a really, really lengthy security process.
This was one of the biggest ways that I would accelerate my deals when I was selling ERP software to law firms, where I would push early to have that meeting with their IT team. And it would often be in the name of making sure that we like checked all the security and IT boxes. But what would often happen is we'd get with their whole IT team, we'd answer all their questions, and I'd be there listening to my security and IT guy answer their stuff. And I'd be learning about all of the different tools that we would have to hook into. And they would sometimes share problems that they had with their processes that my champion or my folks in the finance department hadn't shared with me yet. And so I would actually learn stuff from the IT team that informed my conversations with everybody else. Because now I could meet with my champion, and in the demo, I would talk about how we integrated with NetDocuments, which was the tool that I learned they used from their IT team, rather than say, yeah, what document management solution do you use? Okay, I'll have to check with my team and see if we integrate with that. I already knew that stuff, and it's so much more fluid of a story. And so I love pulling that IT meeting up early. It helped a lot.
Totally. There's like this example of like champion building, but have you tested your champion? So that's an early way to test and pressure test is, hey, you're the docs. Are you going to submit these for me? Or are you just going to let them sit in the inbox and a month later? Then I know you're probably not a champion. You're a coach. You're going to teach me how to do things internally, but you're not going to go to bat for me.
I just really like what you're saying in the beginning of like, hey, usually when someone is having to buy software, probably needs sign off from this person, and some other function. And you're right. For some reason, a lot of us feel like it's weird to reveal that to the buyer. And one of the things that I've been learning recently is like, the more we can just tell them how we think things normally need to get done and tell them what we're going to ask of them and tell them where we're like planning on doing in this meeting, like the more you reveal that stuff and just put it out on the table and break that fourth wall, actually the easier things get.
It's great to be prepared. That's every good sales rep does that. There's books about it, a million podcasts, but are you preparing your prospect? Like, are you equipping them to purchase software?
Anthony, there's one final thing I want to ask you about. It actually came through in your first takeaway or your second takeaway, which was you send an email to your champion, blank description, and it just says, how do you think it went in the subject line? I find that a big reason that sellers can't get their prospects to reply is they send really long emails with a million thank yous and recaps, and then there's like a question all the way at the end of the email, and then like an action item somewhere in the middle. And so I'm curious, for simplifying your comms or optimizing your emails to get a clear reply or action as soon as possible, do you have any advice to the audience in terms of how they message their follow-ups?
Yeah, don't be selfish. Don't think about like, hey, what's good for me and like what will my CEO care about? Everyone wants to write the amazing email so they can show their team, look at this really diligent follow-up that I sent. But it's not about you. It's about the prospect. It's about the company you're trying to partner with. Every single person in the world sits on this all day, every day. I want to be able to send something that when they get the preview on their phone, it says, Armand from 30MPC, how do you think it went? I'll respond to that. If I see a big chunky paragraph in my inbox or on my phone, that looks like extra work. I don't want to go deal with that right now. Armand is going to the bottom of my priority list until I can get to it later. I have a life. I have another day that's going to happen. You're just going to get buried.
Talked about a lot of really good things salespeople should be doing, and now I got to ask you about a shouldn't. And so the last question is, what is one bad habit that you see a lot of salespeople exhibiting that you think they need to break because it hurts them more than it helps?
Oral fillers. A lot of people don't know what they are. I will actually give the feedback in interviews to all of my reps. Most individuals will have an oral filler. The obvious ones are like, but, that are really awkward, but some people don't even notice they say 100%. Oh, 100%. Or, ooh, I really like that. Ooh, I really like that. And my least favorite, ooh, good question. Ooh, good question. And they say that to every single question. It loses validity. If you tell me 13 times it was a good question, now I don't know what's happening. So be conscious of like what you say over and over again. You can see it in your call recording script and just try to either adjust it to something else firsthand. Eventually you'll stop even saying them.
Anthony, thank you for joining us. Amazing episode. Everybody stick around for a 60-second recap coming up soon.
Alrighty, Nick, it is time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Anthony Firenzi. What do you have for your two?
My first one is following the big team demo. Anytime you're with a big group, don't send a single recap email. You're going to send your one recap email that gets everybody on it, but then you're going to send a single one-to-one email to each individual that was on the meeting, speaking to the specific things that they asked about that you could tell that they cared about as a way to get more time and single multi-thread with those people. So you've got your big recap email, you've got your one-to-one emails with everybody, and then you're going to send a one-line email to your champion that says, how did you feel it went? So that's number one, the triple threat after the big team meeting. Number two is when you're meeting with an executive and you only have that 15 minutes, you need to be prepared to run an extremely tight getting into it. hit them with the agenda. Here's what we're going to cover. I understand you care about these two things from an initiative perspective. We're going to go over pricing, and then we're going to go over resources needed on your end. Are you ready to jump into this thing? Be prepared to pattern match and do not waste time asking them if it's raining in San Francisco.
Number 3, compress all of the time between your next steps. Anthony gave multiple examples and some in the prep that we didn't even get to. That includes the same day demo as an example. That also includes setting up the demo call and then the proposal call at the end of the discovery call. So you set up both calls. Before you go into the executive meeting, you should set up the champion prep call, the executive meeting, and the champion debrief. So compress the time between next steps and set as many next steps as you can as early as possible. And then lastly, number 4, it's great to find an external compelling event like their performance review or a contract expiring, but you can't always rely on that. So find an internal compelling event or an internal bad guy. Anthony loves to blame things on his CRO and use commercial terms as a carrot early on in a deal cycle to get them to find a reason to move forward quickly so that they can either get favorable billing terms, a great 2-year deal, or maybe sometimes a discount. Alrighty, Nick, how can people help us out here?
I'm going to plug episode 23 of 30 Minutes to President's Club, which came out in 2020. Armand, it was with Justin Welsh, who had just finished being the CRO over at Patient Pop, where he and actually KD worked together, if you didn't know that. And we tackled a very similar topic in that episode about how to cut your sales cycle in half through the way that you structure and run your discovery calls. So if you liked what we covered in this episode, I recommend we got a link in the show notes to easily find episode 23. Go back, give that one a listen, and I promise you will be getting your commission checks in half the time. Not cut in half, but in half the time. Faster. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on the show.